Hi, everyone. My name is Amy, and I want to share my story with you. When I met Tony, I thought I had found my soulmate. We shared a deep connection, and our love seemed unbreakable. But there was always something troubling our happiness. My in-laws, Robbie and Paula, they never seemed to like me, no matter how hard I tried. It hurt me deeply because I wanted nothing more than to be accepted into their family. I would talk to Tony about their behavior, hoping he would understand and support me. "I need to talk to you about something that's been bothering me," I said one day. "It's about your parents' behavior towards me. They constantly belittle me and make me feel unwelcome, and it's been hurting me deeply." "Oh, come on, babe. You're taking it too personally," Tony replied. "They're just like that sometimes. You know how they are." "But why? I don't understand. I've tried so hard to be part of their family, to win their acceptance." "Look, it's not worth dwelling on. They have their quirks, and you shouldn't let it get to you. Just let it go," Tony insisted. "But it's hard. I want to feel like I belong, like I'm accepted. Their constant belittlement hurts me, and I can't ignore it anymore. Can't you at least try to understand and support me?" "I've known them my whole life, my love. Trust me. This is just how they are. You're making it a big deal out of nothing. Just let it go, okay?" "It's not nothing to me. I'm your wife, and I deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. I need you to stand by my side and address this issue together." "I don't know what you want me to do, my love. They're my parents, and it's not easy for me either. Can't we just focus on our own happiness? Our happiness shouldn't come at the cost of me being constantly belittled and disrespected. I need us to be a team, to address the issue together and find a way to make it better. I'll talk to them, but I can't promise that things will change. Just don't expect too much, okay?" "Thank you, baby. It means a lot to me that you're willing to try for me. I just want to be accepted and respected, that's all." Despite their negativity, Tony and I built a strong and loving relationship. We supported each other through thick and thin, and I thought that our love would be enough to overcome any obstacle. Little did I know that Robbie and Paula's dislike for me would have far-reaching consequences in our relationship. On my birthday, my parents surprised me with a new luxurious car. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw it shining in the driveway. Excitement and gratitude overwhelmed me as I hugged my parents tightly. However, when Robbie and Paula found out about the car, their reactions were surprising. "Amy, we couldn't help but notice the new car in your driveway. How did your parents manage to afford such an expensive gift?" Paula asked. "It was just a surprise from them for my birthday. They're pretty well off, I guess," I replied. "Well, that's quite impressive. It must be nice to have such generous parents," Robbie commented. "Absolutely. We're so happy for you. You know, we've always wanted the best for you," Paula added. "Thank you. It's just the car, but I appreciate your kind words," I said. "No, Amy. It's more than just a car. It's a symbol of your success and the life you deserve. We've always believed in you, even if it didn't seem that way before," Robbie said. "Well, thank you. It means a lot to hear you say that," I replied. It felt strange, but I hoped it meant they were finally accepting me into their lives. As time went on, Robbie and Paula's behavior towards me took a surprising turn. They went from being cold and distant to treating me with warmth and affection. They would greet me with genuine smiles, ask about my day, and even go out of their way to do small acts of kindness. Paula would prepare my favorite dishes when we had dinner together, and Robbie would offer to help with household chores without being asked. At first, I was taken aback by their sudden change of heart. It was as if they had flipped a switch, and the air around us felt different. They seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me and engaging in conversations about my hobbies, interests, and dreams. They would compliment my achievements and offer encouraging words when I faced challenges. Their newfound kindness extended beyond just words. They would surprise me with thoughtful gifts, taking note of my preferences and surprising me with items they knew I would appreciate. They invited me to family gatherings and included me in their celebrations, making me feel like a true part of their lives. It was a stark contrast to the past, and I couldn't help but wonder what had caused this change. Part of me wanted to believe that they had finally come to see the real me, that our relationship was finally blooming. But another part of me couldn't shake the feeling that there was an ulterior motive behind their sudden shift in behavior. However, whenever doubts would creep into my mind, Tony was quick to dismiss them. He assured me that this was just how his parents were, that I had misunderstood their intentions all along. He painted a picture of them as kind-hearted individuals who had been misunderstood, and he encouraged me to give them a chance. Tony's words planted seeds of doubt in my mind, making me question my instincts. I wanted to believe in their change of heart. I longed for a harmonious relationship with my in-laws, and I craved the love and acceptance that seemed to radiate from them. So against the nagging voice in my gut, I allowed myself to be drawn into their web of apparent affection. I embraced their gestures, hoping that this newfound closeness would be a turning point for us. As Robbie and Paula continued their acts of kindness, Tony's behaviors towards me started to change. He became increasingly distant, spending less time at home and showing less affection towards me. The once strong bond we shared seemed to be fading away, and it left me feeling confused and hurt. "Babe, I've noticed a change in your behavior towards me. Is something bothering you? Did I do something you don't like? Can we just talk about it instead of you icing me out?" "What are you talking about? Everything's fine. You're overthinking things again." "No, it's not in my head. I feel like you've been distant and less affectionate lately. I want us to have an open and honest conversation about it. Look, there's nothing to talk about, okay? You're imagining problems that don't exist. Can we drop it already? But I can't just ignore how I'm feeling. I need you to listen and understand what I'm going through. Please, let's discuss this." "I don't have time for this, Amy. It's all in your head. I'm fine and we're fine. End of conversation. Tony, I'm trying to reach out to you to share my feelings and find a resolution together. It hurts that you're dismissing my concerns like this." "Stop being dramatic. There's nothing to talk about. Now, since we're done with this conversation, I'm leaving to go meet with some of my buddies. I'll see you later." "We are not done. Come back." His dismissive attitude left me doubting my own instincts and questioning whether I was reading too much into the situation. I desperately wanted to believe that everything was fine, that it was just a temporary phase. I clung to the hope that our love was strong enough to overcome any obstacles we faced, but deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Tony's avoidance and lack of emotional connection spoke volumes, leaving me with an overwhelming sense of loneliness. I yearned for the affection and understanding we once shared, but it seemed to slip through my fingers just out of reach. The more Tony distanced himself, the more isolated I felt. I would try to engage him in conversation, seeking comfort and support, but he would be preoccupied with other things or dismiss my attempts at communication. It was as if a wall had been erected between us, and I couldn't break through no matter how hard I tried. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself longing for the love and connection we once had. I wanted him to confide in me, to share his struggles and fears, but he remained tight-lipped, shutting me out of his world. It was a devastating blow to my heart, leaving me feeling abandoned and unimportant. One day, Robbie and Paula came to our house to visit me. After a couple of minutes of idle chit-chatting, Paula and Robbie looked at each other. I asked them if everything was all right. "Is everything all right? Do you need me to get you guys something to eat?" No. We came here to talk to you about something." "Oh, tell me what's wrong." "Well, we're in a tough situation right now with our current flat. Our landlord increased our rent, and it's becoming too expensive for us to afford. Yeah, it's putting a strain on our finances. We were wondering if you'd be willing to help us out." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Inflation and greed tend to make you struggle a lot." "Don't worry. I could help with you with a few months' rent while you find a more affordable place." "Well, actually, we were thinking about something bigger. What if you could help us buy a house?" "Oh, buying a house is a big commitment. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that." "Let me discuss it with Tony and think it over." "It's okay, Amy. Take your time to consider it. We appreciate you even considering our request." At that moment, I began connecting the dots about their nice behavior towards me. I slowly realized that they may have been buttering me up so that they could ask me to buy them a house. I knew that I was more than capable of helping them buy a house, but I was worried that as soon as I gave them the money for it, they would go back to treating me the way that they always did. That night, I anxiously waited for Tony to come back. I was confused about what to do. On one hand, I wanted to help them considering how nice they were being to me. At the same time, I had this nagging gut feeling that something was not right. When Tony got home, I brought up his parents' visit over dinner. "I've been thinking about your parents' request, and I have to be honest with you. I'm apprehensive about sending them money for a house. I'm worried about the risks involved, and I don't want to put myself in a vulnerable position." "Amy, they're my parents and they're struggling. We should help them. This is what families do for each other." "Well, yeah, but I can't ignore my gut feeling. I've seen how they treated me in the past, and I'm afraid they'll go back to their mean ways once I transfer them the money." "You're being selfish. They're in a difficult situation, and we have the means to help them. It's the right thing to do." "Well, you know what? If you feel so strongly about it, then maybe you should be the one to help them. If you're certain they won't mistreat me or take advantage of me, then you can support them financially." "What? You're putting this on me? They're my parents, but we're a team, Amy. We're in this together." "Right. I haven't been feeling like we're a team for a while now. I'm going to bed. Good night." I locked myself in our bedroom, leaving him to spend the night on the couch. Emotions overwhelmed me, ranging from sadness to anger as I realized that the man I loved had chosen his parents over our relationship. The next morning, I woke up to a surprise. Tony had prepared breakfast, hoping to make amends for his behavior. "What's all of this? Breakfast smells delicious. I'm sorry about last night. I shouldn't have dismissed your concerns." "What happened, babe? Why were you acting that way?" "My parents have been pressuring me for months to help them out financially. They've been relentless, and it's been weighing on me. I wasn't in a position to help, and I felt embarrassed to ask for your assistance, so I distanced myself. You don't have to face this alone. We're a team, remember? We can find a solution together." "I know, my love. I'm sorry for shutting you out. I was overwhelmed by their nagging, and it clouded my judgment." "It's okay. We can figure this out. Let's sit down and talk about how we can help your parents without compromising our stability." I finally understood his distant behavior. We decided to move forward together, and I chose to help Robbie and Paula. Deep down, despite my decision to help Robbie and Paula, I couldn't shake off my reservations to protect myself. I reached out to my father for advice. He suggested a safeguard using my credit card for the transaction. This way, I would have a whole month to reverse the payment if anything went wrong. It provided a glimmer of reassurance amid uncertainty. With this knowledge in mind, I contacted Robbie and Paula, informing them that the money had been sent. However, the unexpected silence only intensified my suspicions. It was strange that they didn't respond promptly. Doubts began to creep in, and a sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. Had I made a mistake? Were Robbie and Paula taking advantage of my trust? Questions swelled in my mind as I anxiously waited for their reply. Something felt off, and I couldn't ignore my gut instinct warning me of potential trouble ahead. I decided to visit them, hoping to get some clarity. When I arrived at their place, I was stunned to find Tony's car parked there as well. Confusion washed over me as I rang the doorbell, and Paula opened it. "Paul, I've been trying to reach you both for hours. I wanted to let you know that I sent the money as we discussed. What's going on?" "Oh, I knew you had sent it. I just didn't feel like talking to you." "What happened? What's going on? I saw Tony's car outside. Can we please talk about this?" "Wait outside. I've got something for you." As I stood outside the flat, my heart pounded with a mixture of confusion and worry. "Here, take these." "Why? Why are you giving me these?" "None of us ever liked you. We got what we wanted from you, and now we're done. We never want to see you again." "Hey, wait." A wave of sorrow washed over me, engulfing my entire being as Paula handed me those divorce papers. It felt like a crushing weight on my chest, stealing the air from my lungs. The absence of remorse pierced through me, deepening the wound of betrayal. I pleaded with her to let me speak to Tony, desperate for answers. He finally appeared at the front door, his demeanor cold and detached. "Tony, is it true? Do you want a divorce?" "Yes, I do." "My parents have opened my eyes to your true nature. You've always villainized them." "I never meant to vilify them. I shared my concerns, but I never wanted to tear our relationship apart." "You've pushed me away with your distrust. They showed me who you are, Tony. Please, let's talk about this. We can work through it. We can find a way to rebuild what we had." "No, it's over. You need to leave our house and never come back." It was a devastating blow, shattering the love and trust we had built together. Driving home with a heavy heart, my sorrow slowly transformed into burning rage. I realized that I had underestimated the depths of their deception. It was time for me to take matters into my own hands and seek revenge on those who had caused me so much pain. I immediately contacted my bank, explaining the situation and initiating an authorization reversal. Within a couple of days, the money was back in my account. It seemed Robbie and Paula got the message as they arrived at my doorstep, banging and demanding to be let in. Reluctantly, I allowed them inside, curious to hear their distorted version of events. "Why are you on my property? You think you're innocent? You took advantage of us. First of all, please lower your volume. Secondly, no, you have it twisted. It was you who took advantage of my kindness. This is why we didn't like you, Amy. You're a disgrace, and the biggest problem in everyone's life. Paula, you have no right to speak to me that way. I have endured enough mistreatment from both of you, and I will not tolerate any more. Amy, please think it over again." "Oh, wow, so you can be nice, huh? Have you managed to see things clearly without your parents' help? Please, I'm begging you. We've already given our 1 month's notice, and if you don't help, we'll be homeless." "Fortunately, that's not my problem. You all made your choices. Here are the signed divorce papers. Now please leave my house and never return. Please think about what you're doing. You can't be this heartless. This is not the woman I fell in love with." "You're right. I'm not the woman you fell in love with. You and your parents killed her with your hatred and actions. I wish you guys the best of luck. Goodbye." At that moment, I found strength I didn't know I possessed. As the story drew to a close, I can proudly say that I had emerged victorious. My revenge was not in stooping to their level, but rather in reclaiming my dignity and independence. I learned to trust my instincts and stand up for myself, breaking free from the toxic web of deceit that had ensnared me for far too long. In the end, I found solace in knowing that I had the power to rise above their betrayal. Life has a funny way of teaching us lessons, and this experience taught me the importance of self-worth and resilience. I moved forward, leaving behind a painful chapter and embracing a future filled with newfound strength and determination.
Tonight, I had planned to unwind at a play, but my mother-in-law had different ideas. She arrived unexpectedly, accompanied by 9 friends, assuming they could all stay at my house while I was out. Despite my prior plans, she insisted on leaving their belongings at my place and asked if I could prepare dinner and sleeping arrangements for everyone, as if my evening was theirs to command. Caught off guard by her audacity and the necklace she wore, a piece I held dear, my frustration boiled over. I couldn't take it anymore. "I'm actually about to leave for a trip," I informed her, watching her surprise unfold. That was the breaking point. After enduring her relentless demands, I finally asserted myself. "Please return that necklace." It was time to establish the respect and boundaries I had long overlooked. My name is Jennifer, a 32-year-old who transitioned from an administrative role to teaching computer classes after getting married. My husband, Jordy, manages his father's company and often seems preoccupied with its challenges. Our cherished moments together, like movie dates, bring invisible relief, a sight that warms my heart. Although I've always been more of a listener than a talker, Jordy encourages me to voice my thoughts more confidently. My older brother has always been protective, which I once found stifling. Now, I see it as a form of support, much like what Jordy provides. Jordy's brother serves as vice president of their father's company, and his wife, Emma, who is about my age, is also part of our intertwined lives. Emma has always been someone I admire, ambitious, dependable, and kind-hearted. What truly stands out about her is her assertiveness and the way she confidently expresses her views, coupled with a remarkable ability to be understanding and adaptable. Witnessing her stand up to our mother-in-law was nothing short of impressive. Unfortunately, Emma and her husband live quite far away, which means I don't see her as often as I'd like, a fact I often regret. On the other hand, my mother-in-law carries herself as if she owns the company. As the president's wife, she exudes confidence, but her stubbornness and arrogance are unmistakable. She frequently pressures me, insisting, "Jennifer, you're Jordy's wife, the president. You should quit your job as a computer instructor and fully support your husband." While Jordy stands by my choices, her dissatisfaction is palpable, and I'm thankful we don't live too close to her. I've always envisioned a simple, peaceful life with Jordy, perhaps even with children in the future. However, everything changed when Jordy's father unexpectedly passed away from a heart attack. It was a shock to us all, leaving Jordy and his brother to navigate the future of the family business. During this turbulent time, Jordy decided to relocate to Philadelphia to work at the company's main office, while his brother stepped up as the new president, with Jordy becoming vice president. We found a cozy house in Philadelphia, slightly removed from the hustle and bustle, and a bit far from the nearest train station, but it promised a peaceful, sunlit life. With all the changes at work, Jordy often came home late, so I took it upon myself to ensure our home was a warm and welcoming place. I prepared healthy meals to support Jordy during these challenging times, and as the weeks turned into months, his appreciation for my efforts became increasingly evident. "I'm back. I'm starving," he would announce as he entered the house, to which I would respond with a smile, "Thanks for working so hard, I'll make dinner." One day, he mentioned, "Hey Jennifer, my mom wants to visit this weekend. Is that okay?" Knowing she might be feeling lonely after the loss of Jordy's father, I was more than willing to welcome her. "Of course," I replied, although I was aware that we still had some tidying up to do. "She'll be welcome," I assured him, and he quickly said he'd let his mom know. He then suggested inviting his brother and Emma too, to which I happily agreed. It might sound odd, but relocating here meant I could see Emma more often, which turned out to be a delightful surprise. That weekend, we gathered to catch up and reminisce about my father-in-law. It was a bittersweet occasion. While we all felt the loss deeply, I didn't want to dwell on sadness forever. "My mother has picked up a new hobby," Geordie's mother shared, her effortless elegance shining through as she spoke. Today, she wore a stylish light purple scarf that added to her commanding presence, even if she seemed a bit thinner than before. Her authority was especially noticeable when she offered advice to Geordie and his brother on business matters. Since the passing of my father-in-law, I noticed that Geordie's mother became more exacting with me. "Jennifer, we're running out of drinks. Could you go buy some?" she directed at me. Just then, Emma offered to go instead. "Oh, could you? That would be helpful," she replied to Emma, her tone noticeably softer than how she spoke to me. I suspected she was struggling with her grief, so I chose to overlook her sharp comments for the moment. After dinner, Geordie kindly drove everyone home, marking the end of the evening. However, this was just the beginning of more frequent visits from my mother-in-law, who soon began critiquing how I maintained the house, voicing complaints about Emma, and even rummaging through our fridge uninvited. "Jennifer, Geordie is so busy right now. You should be careful with the meals you prepare for him. What if he gets sick too?" she cautioned me one day, followed by a remark about some leftover trash. "Can't you clean up properly?" Her criticism seemed endless, a way to pass the time, but it was always directed at me, never at Emma, who she would quickly dismiss with claims of other engagements. It wasn't that she disliked me, perhaps it was simply easier for her to boss around someone who didn't argue back, unlike Emma, who always stood her ground. This environment made me consider getting a job just to spend less time at home. However, even after securing a position, the situation with my mother-in-law only intensified. "Jennifer, we're out of teriyaki sauce, so pick some up while you're out," she commanded, even as she brought leftovers to take back with her. Her sense of entitlement often left me speechless, especially knowing she could easily afford such things herself. Then, one day, a deeply cherished necklace, a keepsake from my mother, vanished from its usual spot. My immediate suspicion fell on my mother-in-law, who was frequently at our house and seemed too familiar with where I kept my belongings. After a fruitless search, I reluctantly confronted her, only to be met with fierce anger. "You probably lost it yourself. How dare you accuse me? What kind of person are you?" she shouted. I tried to explain that the necklace was a special keepsake from my mother and held immense sentimental value for me, but her response only deepened the wound. "I don't care. It's just a necklace. Why don't you ask Geordie to buy you a new one?" she replied dismissively. Realizing she couldn't grasp the importance of the necklace, I decided to drop the subject. But then more things began to disappear, money from my wallet and various items around the house. Despite keeping a wary eye on her, I never caught her in the act. Exhausted and confused, I confided in Emma, who agreed that my mother-in-law was the likely culprit, given that no one else had such access to our home. It saddened me to think that way, but without concrete evidence, I felt powerless. Seeing how troubled I was, Emma suggested a getaway. "You need a break, Jennifer. Why not join me for a short vacation?" The idea of stepping away from it all was appealing. I felt drained, and the thought of a little escape was rejuvenating. So, 3 weeks later, as Geordie and his brother prepared for a business trip to meet with a company in another state, Emma and I finalized our plans. "I'm heading out, Jennifer. Just relax and enjoy your time," Emma encouraged as we got ready. "Take care," I replied, grateful for the chance to recharge and hopeful that a little distance might offer some perspective on the chaotic happenings at home. I packed early, eager for the respite that awaited. My travel bag was ready by the door, and I was just about to leave when the doorbell rang. Curious, I checked the video feed and saw my mother-in-law standing at the door, not alone, but with a group of friends in tow. "Hi Jennifer, I brought some friends. Can you let us in?" She greeted me as if it were a normal visit. Opening the door, I found her and about 9 friends, all laden with heavy bags. "We're staying over tonight. Make us feel comfortable," she announced, as if it were a done deal. "Didn't I mention? We're going to see a play nearby tonight, and since it ends late, we decided to stay here," she added casually. This was completely unexpected, especially since I was about to leave for my plans when my mother-in-law interrupted. "Oh, did I inconvenience you? Bella told me you were okay with it," she said, trying to justify her imposition. I was taken aback by her audacity. "I'm sorry, but I wasn't informed about this, and I already have plans," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. She seemed surprised but quickly retorted, "But you'll be back soon, right? We'll just drop our bags and go out for a while. Can you make dinner and set up beds for us?" Ignoring my stated plans, she acted as if everything was already settled. "I can't. I'm going on a trip with Emma." "Oh, just for Emma? You can go anytime. We've come all this way just for today." "How long are you going to make us wait?" she persisted, completely disregarding my needs. Then something caught my eye, a glint of metal around her neck. It was the necklace, a cherished memento from my mother. "Wait, that necklace you're wearing," I began, my voice trailing off in shock. To my astonishment, it was indeed the same necklace. "Bella, where did you get that necklace?" I asked, trying to keep my composure. "Why, it's just one of my collections." "Is there a problem?" she replied smugly, clearly enjoying the control she felt she had. "That can't be right. That necklace is rare, a limited edition," I countered, feeling a mix of anger and betrayal. Just then, Emma arrived, puzzled as to why I hadn't met her as planned. "I was wondering why you didn't show up at our meeting place and didn't contact me." "So, this is what was happening," she said upon entering. "I'm sorry, I couldn't get in touch," I replied, the stress evident in my voice. Noticing my distress, Emma quickly picked up on the tension. "What's going on?" she asked, her eyes darting between me and the necklace. I was upset and blurted out, "The necklace she's wearing is the same one that belonged to my mother, the one that recently went missing, the one I kept in that special box." I explained, barely holding back tears. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Emma spoke up loudly enough for everyone to hear, reinforcing the significance of the necklace and its sudden mysterious appearance around my mother-in-law's neck. In a hushed voice, desperate to keep the matter from her friends, my mother-in-law whispered, "Can you both stop this? It's embarrassing. Do you want to accuse me of theft?" Her face flushed with indignation. "Yes, I find it suspicious," Emma replied firmly, not backing down. "Do you have any proof that I stole it?" my mother-in-law shot back. "It's embarrassing to have such unreasonable daughters-in-law. Please don't make a scene in front of my friends," she added, turning back to her group with a forced smile. "Well, let's go inside, everyone." She attempted to usher her friends inside when a crucial detail flashed in my mind. "Bella, can I have a look at the necklace, please?" I asked, needing to confirm my suspicion. Emma circled behind her for a closer look. "Enough of this. What's your mother's name?" my mother-in-law snapped, trying to dismiss us. "It's Amanda," I replied. There it was, I spotted the engraving. "The initials AR are right here," I pointed out. Upon seeing the engraving, her friends looked horrified and began distancing themselves. "Stop this. I didn't come here for this. Let's go, everyone," my mother-in-law urged, her tone frantic. "We're not letting you leave," Emma declared firmly, blocking her path. The friends, sensing the growing tension, muttered, "We're not involved," and quickly made their way toward the subway. "There's been some mistake," my mother-in-law stammered, attempting to follow her friends. But she was stopped by an unexpected presence. "What are you doing here? Weren't you supposed to be on a business trip?" Geordie stood there, his arrival surprising everyone. It turned out that his supposed business trip was scheduled for the next day. He had given his mother a false date to see how she would act, a plan devised after Emma informed him about the missing items from our home. Having visited his childhood home and found similar items missing, Geordie had begun to suspect theft. But without concrete evidence, he knew any accusation could easily be denied. "What are you doing here?" Geordie demanded. "I was just leaving," she replied, attempting to escape the situation. "Give it back. That necklace isn't yours, it's a keepsake from my parents." "Why do you have it, Ma?" "I demand an explanation." "It's not what you think. I found it in my purse." "Jennifer must have set me up," she claimed, trying to shift the blame to me, panic evident in her voice. "Do you think such a lie would work? There's no way Jennifer would do something like that." "First, give the necklace back to Jennifer, and we'll talk after that," Geordie insisted. Reluctantly, she removed the necklace and threw it on the ground, then tried to flee. "Hey, wait," we called out, starting to chase her but stopping shortly after. We didn't need to chase her, the truth had already caught up with her. I was bewildered as about 15 police officers stood before my mother-in-law. The scene was surreal, and I struggled to grasp what was unfolding. Then one officer explained, "We received a report from a local resident. They said someone was causing a disturbance here and was often seen entering this house when the owners were away. They asked us to come quickly." "What are you talking about?" "I'm the mother of the son living here," my mother-in-law retorted, clearly annoyed. "Wait, what do you mean she entered when we weren't home?" I questioned, my curiosity piqued. "I never did such a thing," I interjected, trying to clarify that her visits were always while we were present. The police then shared more. "The informant saw her sneaking into your backyard, likely using a spare key to get inside." Indeed, we had a hidden spare key under a plant pot in the backyard. This revelation sent a chill down my spine and suddenly made sense of the missing items. Geordie had suspected something and planned to observe her actions today, but this turn of events was beyond his expectations. "Mom, why were you coming into our house when we weren't home?" Geordie demanded an answer. "It's all lies. Are you going to believe some unknown person's story over me?" she shot back. "But you did have my precious necklace, didn't you?" I pressed her further. "I told you, I found it in my purse," my mother-in-law maintained her story. One officer intervened. "Let's talk about this at the station." "But I didn't do anything," she pleaded. "Mom, stop this. I can't understand why you did this," Geordie said, his tone firm. Hearing her son's words, my mother-in-law seemed momentarily defeated and collapsed to the ground. But just when it appeared she had given up, she burst into a rage. "After your father passed away, I felt so lonely. Seeing her always so cheerful, I couldn't stand it anymore. I wanted her to feel the pain I felt," she confessed, her emotions raw and turbulent. Geordie was visibly shaken by her irrational justification. Sensing the need to address the situation directly, I stepped in front of an increasingly upset Geordie. "Bella, I understand where you're coming from. Perhaps I've been too dismissive of our interactions. However, stealing and causing distress is an entirely different matter. Did you intend to upset me? Is that what you aim for?" I asked. "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped back. "Do you find joy in pushing someone to their limits with such twisted actions? Does it fill the void of your loneliness? I asked, trying to grasp the depth of her actions. Shut up. What do you know about me? She yelled, unwilling to confront the reality of what she had done. If you're feeling low, you should just tell us. We can't read minds, I attempted to calm her with reason. Don't mock me. Why would I confide in you, you useless daughter-in-law? She retorted angrily. Mom, Jennifer has a point, Jordy chimed in, trying to mediate as the tension escalated. The police, observing the situation deteriorate, intervened and suggested we relocate to the station. Are you actually going to arrest me? I can't believe this, she protested vehemently. However, due to multiple eyewitness reports of her unauthorized entry and the suspicion of theft connected to her possession of my belongings, the police decided to detain her. My mother-in-law was arrested on charges of unlawful entry and theft. Continuing to assert her innocence, she demanded legal representation and refused the meals provided during her visit. Her father expressed disappointment and encouraged her to sincerely contemplate her actions. His stern reprimand prompted her to tearfully apologize, showing a rare moment of submission to his authority, the only one she seemed unwilling to defy. He cautioned her that without genuine introspection, she shouldn't expect a welcoming return home. Reluctantly, she appeared to acknowledge the gravity of her situation. Perhaps the loss of her husband had left my mother-in-law adrift, with her flashy attire and jewelry serving as armor against her insecurities. I pondered whether her desperate treatment of me and my sister-in-law was merely a facade to mask her vulnerabilities. Nonetheless, her unchecked desires and poor impulse control were distinct issues, and it was evident that her flawed judgments had led to this unfortunate situation. I was stunned by how quickly things had escalated, especially after discovering that my mother-in-law had been using the spare key to enter our home surreptitiously. The thought of someone intruding into our personal space uninvited was deeply unsettling. Thankfully, our vigilant neighbors across the street, particularly the wife who worked from home, noticed her suspicious behavior and reported it. I am immensely grateful for their brave intervention, which has since allowed us to live more peacefully and ensured our safety. We updated our home security by changing all the locks and stopped placing a spare key outside. Jordy decided it was best to sever ties with his mother, insisting that she refrain from contacting us in the future. He even warned that legal measures would be taken if she attempted to reach out. After her release, she returned to her childhood home in the countryside and surprisingly adopted a simpler way of life, a stark contrast to her previously extravagant lifestyle. Under the watchful eye of her father, she began to contribute to household chores. I genuinely hope this change allows her to contemplate her past actions. In the meantime, my father moved in with us, primarily to safeguard against any unexpected visits from my mother-in-law. His presence not only serves as a security measure but also brings comfort during this exciting time, as I am expecting our first child. The prospect of becoming grandparents has brought a new level of joy and support from Jordy, enhancing the warmth and resolve in our household. While material things may offer momentary pleasure, it's truly the company of loved ones that enriches our lives. As we settle into our current living situation, surrounded by family, we are dedicated to maintaining the tranquility and joy in our daily lives, cherishing the serene and supportive environment we've cultivated.
The moonlight spilled across the room, casting a serene glow on what should have been a peaceful honeymoon suite. But the tranquility was a facade, shattered by hushed voices that sliced through the stillness and into my heart. Ethan's words, laced with deceit, were like venom. "She's asleep. It's a real shame it's not you I'm marrying, Natalie." I lay still, my heart pounding in my chest. I was supposed to be sleeping, lost in dreams of our new life together. Instead, I was a silent spectator to my own betrayal. The cold realization settled in. My sister Natalie and my husband Ethan were plotting against me. On our honeymoon. "Ethan, you're wicked." Natalie's voice was soft coo, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. "But what if Lauren finds out?" "She won't. I've made sure of that." Ethan's confidence was chilling. Tears threatened to escape, but I willed them back. I couldn't reveal my awareness. Not yet. I needed to know more, to understand the depth of their treachery. As their whispers faded into the night, my mind raced. The memories of our wedding day, once vibrant and joyful, now twisted into a cruel joke. Natalie, always in the shadows, waiting to snatch what was mine. And Ethan, the man I had loved and trusted, the architect of my heartbreak. I remembered the white dress Natalie wore at the wedding, how it stood out, a deliberate choice to upstage me. Ethan's compliment to her then made sense now, a signal of their hidden alliance. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, painting a picture of deceit I couldn't ignore. When dawn broke, I rose from the bed, a plan forming in my mind. I was Lauren Harper, and if they thought they could play me for a fool, they were sorely mistaken. I was going to fight back, not just for my pride, but for every moment they had stolen from me. I slipped out of the room, my steps silent but determined. The cool morning air was a balm to my seething anger. I needed evidence, undeniable proof of their betrayal. It was the only way to ensure they couldn't wriggle out of their web of lies. Returning to the room, I found Ethan and Natalie in a seemingly innocent breakfast conversation, but the undercurrent of their secret was palpable. I joined them, my facade of ignorance perfectly in place. "How did you sleep, Lauren?" Ethan asked, his voice a sickening blend of concern and deceit. "Like a baby," I lied, my voice steady. "I feel completely refreshed." Natalie smiled, but her eyes couldn't mask the guilt. "That's great. Today's going to be amazing." Yes, it would be, but not in the way they expected. The morning sun glared through the windows, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within me. As Ethan and Natalie chatted about the day's plans, my mind wandered back to the wedding, the day when the seeds of deception were sown. The memory of Natalie in her white dress at my wedding was vivid, an intentional act of defiance against unwritten social rules. The dress wasn't just an outfit choice, it was a statement, a silent declaration of her intentions. Ethan had complimented her, "That flowy dress suits your petite frame." His words, once innocuous, now echoed with hidden meaning. I remembered feeling a twinge of unease then, quickly dismissed as wedding day jitters. But it was more than that. It was my intuition sensing the undercurrents of betrayal. The way Ethan's eyes lingered on Natalie, the stolen glances they thought I hadn't noticed. Our honeymoon in Bali was supposed to be an escape, a celebration of our love. Yet here I was, trapped in a nightmare of my own making. The realization that Natalie had followed us here was like a punch to the gut. How could she? How could they? I excused myself from breakfast under the pretext of needing fresh air. Alone on the balcony, I allowed myself a moment of vulnerability. The tears came then, hot and unrelenting, but with each tear shed my resolve hardened. I wiped my face, my tears not a sign of weakness, but fuel for the fire of revenge burning within me. Back in our room, I began my plan. I needed evidence, something concrete to expose them. I rummaged through Ethan's belongings when he was in the shower, looking for any proof of their affair. Then, in his coat pocket, I found it. A small piece of jewelry, a locket I had never seen before, unmistakably feminine. I held the locket, a tangible piece of their deceit. It was more than enough to start my retribution. I placed it back carefully, covering my tracks. They wouldn't know I was onto them, not until I was ready to strike. The rest of the day was a blur, a performance of the happy bride while my mind plotted their downfall. Each smile, each touch from Ethan was a lie that added to the ledger of his betrayal. And Natalie, playing the role of the doting sister, was no better. As night fell and they retreated to their secret rendezvous, I lay awake. My heart was a battleground of sorrow and rage. But amidst the chaos, one thing was clear. They had underestimated me. Lauren Harper was not a victim. She was a woman scorned, and she would have her revenge. The following days in Bali were a masterclass in deception. Ethan and Natalie believed their secret safe, but I was watching, gathering the pieces of their treachery to weave their downfall. I started by accidentally leaving my phone recording in our room when I knew they'd be alone. The things they said, their words were like daggers. "Lauren's nice and all, but she's so naive," Natalie chuckled. Ethan's reply was a twist of the knife. "That's what makes this easy. She trusts us completely." Hearing my sister and husband mock my trust was a searing pain, a betrayal that transcended heartbreak. But it fueled my resolve. This recording was the evidence I needed, but I wanted more. I wanted them to feel a fraction of the pain they caused me. One evening, as we strolled along the beach, I brought up our wedding. "Ethan, didn't Natalie look stunning in that white dress? Almost like a bride herself," I said, my voice laced with feigned innocence. Ethan stuttered, his facade cracking. "Well, yeah, it was a nice dress." Natalie shot him a look, a silent warning. "Oh, it was just a dress, Lauren. You were the star, of course." Their discomfort was palpable, a small victory in my silent war. But my greatest move came the night before we were to leave Bali. I had convinced them to have a farewell dinner, a toast to our wonderful honeymoon. Little did they know, I had arranged for a private investigator to take photos of their secret meetings. As we raised our glasses, I smiled, the predator, not the prey. "To new beginnings," I toasted, my words heavy with unspoken meaning. "To new beginnings," they echoed, unaware of the storm on the horizon. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought of the life I had envisioned with Ethan, of the future we were supposed to have. But that life was a lie, one I was no longer willing to live. Tomorrow, I would leave Bali, but I wouldn't be leaving alone. I would be taking their secrets, their lies, and turning them into weapons of my own. The journey back from Bali was a silent one. Ethan and Natalie chatted idly, unaware of the storm brewing within me. As we landed, I felt a sense of liberation, the chains of their deceit no longer holding me. At home, I acted quickly. I contacted a lawyer, presenting the evidence I had gathered. The recordings, the locket, and the photos from the investigator painted a clear picture of Ethan and Natalie's affair. My lawyer, a stern-faced woman with a sharp mind, was appalled. "We'll make sure they get what they deserve, Lauren." That evening, as Ethan returned from work, I greeted him with a smile, masking the turmoil inside. "How was your day, dear?" I asked, my voice dripping with feigned sweetness. "It was good, busy as usual," he replied, oblivious to the undercurrents. Natalie, who had come over for dinner, added, "You must be exhausted, Ethan. Let me get you a drink." Watching them, a sense of disgust washed over me. How could they be so callous, so cruel? Dinner was a charade. Ethan and Natalie played their parts well, but I could see the cracks in their armor. Every smile, every touch between them was a confession of their guilt. "Lauren, this dish is amazing," Ethan complimented, his words hollow. I smiled, my heart hardening. "I'm glad you like it. I wanted to make something special tonight." As the night wore on, I excused myself, citing tiredness. Alone in my room, I finalized my plans. Tomorrow, I would confront them, expose their lies for all to see. I had arranged for our families to meet under the guise of a belated wedding celebration. It would be the perfect stage for my revelation. The next morning, as we gathered at the venue, the tension was palpable. Ethan and Natalie were nervous, their smiles strained. Our families chatted, unaware of the drama about to unfold. I stood, glass in hand, commanding the room's attention. "I'd like to propose a toast," I began, my voice steady. "To truth and honesty, the foundation of any relationship." Ethan's eyes widened, a flicker of fear passing through them. Natalie's hand trembled ever so slightly. "To truth and honesty," the room echoed, raising their glasses. The moment had come. "I have something to share," I announced, my voice ringing clear. "Something about Ethan and Natalie." The room fell silent, all eyes on me. This was it, the moment of reckoning. The moment when the mask of deceit would fall, and their true faces would be revealed for all to see. The air in the room was thick with anticipation as I faced our families and the two people who had betrayed me the most. Ethan and Natalie looked like deer caught in headlights, their facades crumbling under the weight of impending exposure. "I've discovered something unsettling," I began, my voice unwavering. "Ethan and Natalie have been having an affair, since before our wedding." Gasps filled the room. Ethan's face drained of color, while Natalie's eyes darted around, looking for an escape that didn't exist. "This can't be true," Ethan stammered, his voice betraying him. Natalie chimed in, her tone desperate. "Lauren, you're mistaken. This is crazy." I held up my phone, playing the recording of their conversation in Bali. Their own words filled the room, irrefutable proof of their deceit. "You're lying." Ethan's facade broke, anger replacing the fear. "You invaded our privacy." "Our privacy?" I echoed, my voice laced with scorn. "The privacy to betray me, your wife?" Natalie's eyes were filled with tears, but they sparked no sympathy in me. "Lauren, please, I never meant for this to happen. Just what, Natalie? Just happened to fall in love with my husband? My voice was icy, cutting through her excuses. Ethan turned to our families, pleading, "This isn't what it looks like. Lauren's just upset." My father stood up, his expression a mix of anger and disappointment. "Ethan, how could you do this to our daughter? And Natalie, you're her sister!" The room erupted into chaos, with family members voicing their shock and disgust. Amidst the turmoil, I remained calm, the eye of the storm. This was the retribution I had sought, the exposure of their true selves. Ethan's mother approached me, her eyes filled with sadness. "Lauren, I am so sorry. We never knew Ethan could do something like this." Natalie was sobbing now, her image of the innocent sister shattered. "I'm sorry, Lauren. I never wanted to hurt you." Their apologies were empty, meaningless. The damage was done, the betrayal too deep. "I want a divorce, Ethan," I stated firmly. "And Natalie, consider our sisterhood over." As I walked out of the room, leaving behind the shattered pieces of what was once my life, I felt a surge of empowerment. They thought they could break me, but I emerged stronger, like the architect of their downfall. In the wake of the revelation, the fallout was immediate and severe. Ethan and Natalie found themselves isolated, their actions casting them adrift in a sea of judgment and scorn. I met Ethan one last time to finalize the divorce proceedings. He was a shadow of the confident man he once was, his eyes hollow with loss. "Lauren, can't we talk about this? I know I made a mistake, but—" "A mistake, Ethan?" I cut him off, my voice cold and unyielding. "You call an affair with my sister a mistake? There's nothing to discuss." He reached out, but I stepped back, out of his reach forever. "I never thought you'd take it this far," he said, a note of disbelief in his voice. "You never thought at all, Ethan. That was your mistake." With that, I left him standing alone, a man undone by his own actions. Natalie fared no better. Our parents, once her staunch defenders, were appalled by her behavior. They cut her off, both financially and emotionally. She tried to reach out to me, her messages a mix of apologies and pleas for understanding. "Lauren, please, I'm your sister. We can fix this," she texted. Her words a desperate clawing for redemption. I replied with a single sentence that severed our bond for good. "You ceased being my sister the moment you betrayed me." The community around us was unforgiving. Ethan's career suffered as his reputation crumbled. Natalie found herself ostracized, her social circle closing its doors to her. They were pariahs, their names synonymous with betrayal and deceit. In their downfall, I found a bitter satisfaction. They had underestimated me, thought they could use me as a pawn in their selfish game. But I turned the tables, exposing them for who they truly were. Yet, even in victory, there was a sense of loss. The end of my marriage, the severing of ties with my sister. These were wounds that would take time to heal. But I was determined to move forward, to rebuild my life on my own terms. As I watched Ethan and Natalie grapple with the consequences of their actions, a part of me took solace in the fact that justice, though harsh, had been served. They received the karmic retribution they deserved, a fitting end to their sordid tale. The weeks following the confrontation were a time of introspection and rebuilding for me. I watched as Ethan and Natalie's lives unraveled, their once bright futures dimmed by the shadow of their betrayal. One afternoon, I encountered Ethan in a coffee shop. He was alone, a far cry from the confident man he once was. "Lauren," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I've lost everything. My job, my reputation. I never realized how much I'd lose." I looked at him, seeing the man I once loved now broken by his own doing. "You didn't just lose, Ethan. You chose. You chose this path when you decided to betray me." He looked down, the weight of his choices etched on his face. "I'm sorry, Lauren. Truly sorry. Your apologies can't undo the past, Ethan. You have to live with what you did, just like I do." Leaving Ethan in his solitude, I walked away, feeling a sense of closure. I had moved past the need for revenge. My healing wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. Natalie's fall from grace was equally stark. Ostracized and alone, she reached out to me one last time. "Lauren, I've lost my job, my friends. I have nothing. Please, can't we put this behind us?" I responded with the finality of someone who had crossed a bridge and burned it behind her. "What we had as sisters is behind us, Natalie. You made your choice, and now you live with it. I've moved on." I heard the defeat in her silence, a silence that spoke volumes. In the months that followed, I threw myself into my work and my personal growth. I discovered strengths I never knew I had, and weaknesses I was now brave enough to face. The betrayal had shattered me, but in its wake, I found the pieces of who I truly was. Reflecting on everything that had happened, I realized that the experience, as painful as it was, had taught me invaluable lessons. About trust, about resilience, and about my own worth. As I looked to the future, I felt a sense of hope. I had risen from the ashes of my old life, stronger and more self-assured. The path ahead was mine to shape, and I stepped forward with confidence, ready for whatever came next.
I'm Ava, a 29-year-old stay-at-home mom living in a cozy house I inherited from my grandma. It's not just any house. It's a piece of my childhood filled with memories of baking cookies with Grandma and playing hide and seek in its spacious rooms. Now, it's home to my own little family. My husband, Mark, a hardworking manager, and our 2-year-old sunshine Lily. Life sounds picture perfect, right? Well, it's not. The problem starts right next door, where Mark's parents, Helen and Frank, live. Our relationship, let's just say it's like mixing oil and water. Mommy, more juice! Lily's voice cuts through my thoughts. I pour her some juice, glancing at the clock. Almost 5 p.m. Time for the daily invasion. As if on cue, the door swings open. Ava, we're here! What's for dinner? Helen announces, with Frank shuffling in behind her. Hi, Helen. Frank? I've made a casserole, but it's just enough for Mark, Lily, and me, I reply, trying to keep my voice steady. Frank frowns. What do you mean, just enough? You know we come over for dinner? Helen chimes in, her tone sharp. You're at home all day, Ava. Is it too much to ask for a decent meal? I take a deep breath, feeling the frustration bubble up. I have my hands full with Lily, and cooking for 4 is a bit much every day. Mark walks in, tired from work. What's going on here? Your wife doesn't want to cook for us, Frank says, his voice raising. Mark looks at me, then at his parents, and sighs. Can't you just make a bit more, Ava? My frustration peaks. It's not about the amount, Mark. It's about respect and boundaries. Helen scoffs. Boundaries. We're family. Lily, sensing the tension, tugs at my dress. Mommy, I'm hungry. I kneel to her level. Let's get you seated, sweetie. Dinner is a tense affair. Mark's parents eat the sandwiches they brought, throwing disapproving glances my way. The TV blares in the background. Lily's fidgeting in her chair, and I'm trying not to crumble under the weight of this daily chaos. After they leave, Mark sits on the sofa, absorbed in his phone. We need to talk about this, I say, standing in front of him. He doesn't look up. Not now, Ava. I'm tired. And just like that, I'm left alone in the kitchen, cleaning up the mess, both literally and metaphorically. This is my life, a constant battle of wills, with me on one side and the world on the other. Life has a funny way of testing you, and mine's turning into a daily pop quiz with no right answers. I'm Ava, still juggling motherhood, a marriage that's running on autopilot, and in-laws who've mistaken my home for a free-for-all diner. It's another morning in our house, and I've made a decision. Today, I'm cooking only for 3, me, Mark, and our little Lily. Let's see how this goes. Lily's in her high chair, happily smearing oatmeal on her face when Helen and Frank barge in, just like clockwork. Morning, Ava. What's for breakfast? Helen asks, a bit too cheerily. I take a deep breath. Morning. I've only made enough for Lily and me today. Frank's face turns red. What do you mean? Are we supposed to starve? No, you're supposed to take care of your meals, I reply, trying to keep my voice calm. Helen's eyes narrow. This is ridiculous, Ava. We are family. You can't just... I cut her off. I can, and I did. I have enough on my plate with Lily and the house. Mark comes in, rubbing his eyes. Why's everyone shouting so early? Your wife refuses to cook for us, Frank's voice booms. Mark looks at me, then at his parents, and says, "Ava, why are you making things difficult?" "Difficult?" I almost laugh. "Mark, I'm not a 24/7 restaurant. I need help, not more mouths to feed." Mark doesn't say anything, just grabs a piece of toast and leaves for work. The day drags on. I can feel the tension thickening in the air. Dinner time rolls around, and I've stuck to my guns. Dinner for 3. Helen and Frank show up, each holding a sandwich. They sit down, unwrapping their food with exaggerated slowness. The TV's volume goes up, until it's like we're at a rock concert. Lily's rubbing her eyes, clearly struggling to stay awake amidst the noise. "Could you turn that down? Lily's trying to sleep," I ask, my patience wearing thin. Frank grunts. "We can't hear it if it's any lower." Helen adds, "You shouldn't be so uptight, Ava. It's just TV." "It's not just TV. It's my home turning into a battleground, and I'm losing." Lily starts to cry, and I scoop her up, escaping to the quiet of her room. Later, Mark comes home to find his parents still there. The living room, a mess. Lily asleep in my arms. "What happened here?" he asks, looking around. "I'm too tired for another round of arguments. Just the usual," I say, my voice flat. He doesn't push it, and neither do I, but inside, I feel something shift. I'm at my breaking point, and something's got to give. Every day feels like walking on eggshells in my own house. I'm Ava, still trying to find a balance between being a mom, a wife, and now, apparently, an unwelcome host to my in-laws. But today, it's not the in-laws that shake my world, it's Mark. It's late evening. Lily's finally asleep after what felt like hours of soothing. I'm clearing up the toys when Mark walks in, looking like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Ava, we need to talk," he says, avoiding eye contact. I sit down, bracing myself. "What is it, Mark?" He takes a deep breath. "I made a mistake with our finances. I invested in something and it didn't pan out." I feel a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean? How bad is it?" "It's bad, really bad. I've lost a lot, like $100,000. My heart stops. 100,000? How could you do that without telling me?" Mark runs his hands through his hair, looking anywhere but at me. "I thought I could make it big, you know. Fix everything." "Fix what? We were fine. I can barely keep the tremor out of my voice." He finally looks at me, his eyes pleading. I know, but now we need a plan." "A plan?" I echo, feeling numb. "Yeah, I was thinking, maybe we could move my parents into our house, rent out their place to cover the debts." My mind races. His parents in our house? Full time. The very thought makes me feel like I'm suffocating. "Mark, are you serious? After everything with your parents, you want them here in our house all the time?" He sighs. "I know it's not ideal, but we don't have many options, Ava." I stand up, anger and disbelief swirling inside me. "Not ideal. It's a nightmare, Mark. And you just decided all of this without even talking to me?" He stands too, his voice rising. "What was I supposed to do, Ava? I'm trying to fix this." "By making my life a living hell," I shoot back. There's a silence, heavy and suffocating. Finally, I speak. my voice barely a whisper. Fine. Move them in. But this is on you, Mark? He nods, looking relieved and guilty all at once, but all I feel is a deep, sinking dread. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about trust, and I'm not sure how we come back from this. The day my in-laws moved in, it wasn't just their suitcases that entered our home. It was a tidal wave of chaos. Right from the start, it's clear that Helen and Frank are here to stay, and they have their own ideas about how things should be. Frank, put that box in the living room, and careful with it. Helen's voice echoes through the hallway as she directs her husband with military precision. I watch, holding Lily, who clings to me, wide-eyed at the commotion. Then, as if things couldn't get worse, Helen turns to me, Ava. We need to talk about rearranging the house. We need space for our things. I feel a knot in my stomach. Rearranging, Helen? There's not much space to work with. She waves her hand dismissively. Nonsense. Let's start with Lily's playroom. She can play in her bedroom, right? I'm taken aback. That's her space, Helen. She loves it there. Frank, carrying a heavy box, chimes in. Kid won't mind, Ava. Don't make a fuss. Lily buries her face in my neck, and I realize this is just the beginning. The days that follow are a blur of unwelcome changes. Helen and Frank unpack their belongings, turning the living room into their personal space. They replace my tasteful decor with their old-fashioned knacks, and the TV blares day and night with their favorite shows. I try to cook dinner one evening, with Lily tugging at my apron. Frank strolls in, eyeing the pots on the stove. What's this? Another one of your experimental dishes. I bite my tongue. It's a new recipe, Frank. If it's not to your liking, feel free to make something yourself. He laughs. In my day, women knew how to cook for their families. I feel a flash of anger, but before I can respond, Mark enters, looking weary. Can't we have one peaceful meal? I turn to him, my patience wearing thin. Peaceful? Mark, your parents have turned our home upside down. He avoids my gaze, grabbing a beer and retreating to the now occupied living room. Weeks pass, and the tension only grows. Helen has opinions on everything, from how I raise Lily to how I should manage the house. Frank, meanwhile, has taken to criticizing my cooking at every meal. One afternoon, I'm folding laundry when Helen walks in. Ava, these sheets aren't folded properly. Let me show you how it's done. I set my jaw. Thanks, Helen, but I've been folding sheets my whole life. She tuts, clearly not the right way. As she refolds the sheets, I feel a sense of helplessness. My own home no longer feels like mine. Night falls and I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. The muffled sounds of the TV and my in-laws' laughter seep through the walls. Lily is asleep, but rest eludes me. I think back to the days when this house was filled with love and laughter, a stark contrast to the present. It feels like I'm losing a part of myself, bit by bit, as each day passes. Mark's side of the bed is empty. He's been spending more and more time working late. I'm left alone, wondering how things got this bad, and what, if anything, I can do to take back control of my life and my home. In a house that once felt like mine, I'm Ava, now a spectator in my own life. With my in-laws' takeover and Mark's growing distance, I'm left grappling with suspicions that refuse to settle. One afternoon, while Lily naps and the house is momentarily quiet, I call my brother, Jake. He's always been the one I turn to in tough times. "Hey, Jake," I say, trying to sound casual. "Ava, how's it going? Haven't heard from you in a while." I take a deep breath. "Not great, Jake. I'm worried about Mark. He's different." Jake's tone shifts, more serious now. Different how? He's always working late, secretive with his phone, and there's this tension, like he's hiding something. Jake pauses, then says, "You think he's seeing someone else?" The words sting, even though I've thought them 1,000 times. I don't know, Jake. I just feel like I'm losing him. There's a resolve in Jake's voice when he speaks. "Let me do something. I have a friend, a private detective. He can discreetly check on Mark, see what's up." I'm hesitant. A detective? Isn't that a bit much? "Ava, if something's wrong, you need to know. For you and Lily." I sigh, a mix of relief and fear. "Okay, do it. But, Jake, keep it quiet. I don't want to stir up more trouble if it's nothing." "You got it. I'll take care of it," he assures me. Days pass, and each of Mark's late nights and hushed phone calls add to my growing unease. Then, one evening, Jake calls. "Ava, I have some news. Can you meet me tomorrow? Just you?" My heart sinks. Yes, I can make it. The next day, I sit across from Jake in a quiet cafe, the air thick with anticipation. "So, what did you find out?" I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Jake hesitates, then hands me an envelope. "Ava, it's not good." I open it to find photos and reports. There's Mark with a woman I don't recognize and a child. My world spins. He has a child? Jake nods solemnly. "I'm sorry, Ava." The detective confirmed it. Mark's been living a double life. Tears blur my vision. How could he do this? To me? To Lily? Jake reaches across the table, his hand on mine. "You're stronger than you know, Ava. We'll figure this out together." I nod, wiping away tears. "I need to confront him, Jake. He has to explain this. Be careful, Ava. You don't know how he'll react." "I have to know, Jake. I have to know why." Armed with the truth, but shattered inside, I head home. A confrontation is inevitable, and I need to brace myself for the storm that's about to hit. It's the evening of the dinner, and I'm Ava, preparing a meal that I know even my critical mother-in-law can't find fault with. The house is buzzing with a tense energy as I await the arrival of my brother, Jake. Tonight is about more than a family dinner. It's about unveiling a painful truth. As I set the table, I can feel the weight of the envelope in my pocket, heavy with the evidence of Mark's betrayal. My hands shake slightly, but I steady myself. This needs to be done. The dinner starts off like any other. Mark's parents, Helen and Frank, along with Mark, sit around the table, complimenting the food for a change. I catch Mark's eye, and he gives me a small, oblivious smile. "It's almost time." Jake arrives, apologizing for being late. As he sits down, he casually turns to Mark. "So, Mark, Ava told me about your investment ventures. Sounds interesting." Mark, caught off guard, coughs. "Oh yeah, it's nothing big." I watch as Jake probes further. "What kind of investments? Stocks? Real estate?" Mark stumbles over his words. A bit of everything, really." I can see the confusion on Jake's face, feigned for the others, but all too real for me. Can you tell me more? I've been looking to invest myself." Mark fumbles, clearly out of his depth. "It's complex stuff, hard to explain over dinner." That's my cue. I pull out the envelope and place it on the table, pushing it towards Mark. "Maybe this will help explain," I say, my voice steady. Everyone's attention shifts to the envelope. Mark opens it, his face draining of color as he sees the photos, him with another woman and a child. Helen gasps, "Mark, what is this?" Frank looks on, stunned into silence. Mark tries to speak, but nothing coherent comes out. He looks at me, betrayal in his eyes. "Eva, why?" "Why? You have a second family, Mark. How could you do this to us?" "So you moved your parents to my house, and with the money you received from renting their apartment, you kept your mistress?" I'm almost yelling now, the pain and anger I've been holding back spilling over. The room is silent, the air thick with shock. Helen and Frank look between Mark and the photos, disbelief written all over their faces. "You lied to us, to your own family," Helen whispers, her voice filled with hurt. Frank just shakes his head, unable to find words. Mark stands up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I need to explain," he says, "but it's clear no explanation can undo this." He walks out of the room, and I'm left there with his parents in a deafening silence. The air in the house is thick with tension the morning after the revelation. I'm Eva, still reeling from the shock, but ready to face the consequences. Helen and Frank, Mark's parents, confront me in the kitchen, their faces twisted with anger. Helen's voice is sharp as a knife. "You! This is your doing! You drove our son to this!" I stare at her, disbelief and anger mixing in my gut. "Me? Your son lied to all of us, Helen?" Frank chimes in, his voice just as accusing. "He was always a good boy until he married you. You must have pushed him away." My hands tremble with fury. I pushed him away. I cared for our family while he... Helen cuts me off. "Oh, save it. You probably had men on the side too. That's why he did what he did." "I've had enough. How dare you?" I yell. "I've been nothing but loyal and supportive, and you blame me for your son's betrayal?" Frank steps closer, his face red. "Our son would never have done this if it weren't for you." I take a step back, my heart pounding. "You know what? I don't need to listen to this. This is my house, and I want you out. Now..." Helen scoffs. "You can't kick us out. This is our son's house too." I stand my ground, firm and unwavering. "No, Helen. This house was my grandmother's, and now it's mine. You have no right to be here after what you've said." Frank looks like he wants to argue, but Helen grabs his arm. "Let's go, Frank. We don't need to stay where we're not wanted." As they pack their things, I feel a mix of relief and sadness. Once they're gone, I lock the door behind them, the click of the lock echoing in the empty house. Alone in the silence, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I look around the house, my house, and for the first time in a long while, I see a future where Lily and I can be free from lies and betrayal. I pick up the phone to call a locksmith. It's time to change the locks, to change our lives. The house feels different today, like a new chapter has just begun. I'm Ava, standing in my once troubled living room, now a space of peace and possibility. The legal battle is over, and the court's decision still echoes in my mind. I recall my lawyer's words from yesterday. The court has granted you substantial alimony and compensation for Mark's deceit and infidelity. He'll be paying for quite some time. I had felt a mix of relief and vindication hearing that. It wasn't about the money. It was about accountability. Lily, oblivious to the complexities of the adult world, plays on the floor. Her laughter is a balm to my soul. I watch her, thinking about our future. The phone rings, snapping me back to the present. It's Jake, checking in. Hey, Ava, how are you holding up? I smile. Better, Jake. Much better. The court's decision helped close a painful chapter. Jake's voice is warm. I'm glad, Ava. You deserve peace after all this. I glance at Lily. We both do. As I talk to Jake, I can't help but think about Mark. The last I heard, he was struggling to make ends meet, now living with his parents again. It's ironic, I say to Jake. He's back where he started, but this time by his own doing. Jake sighs. He brought it on himself, Ava. You did what you had to do. I nod, feeling a sense of closure. Mark's choices led him here, and I no longer feel any obligation to worry about him. After the call, I sit with Lily, watching her play. The court's decision has given us a financial cushion, but more importantly, it's given us freedom. Mommy, look! Lily holds up a drawing of our house. Our home, she says proudly. I hug her. Yes, sweetie, our happy home. I realize then that this is just the beginning for us. A beginning filled with hope, strength, and the love we have for each other. The road ahead is ours to shape, and I feel ready to embrace whatever comes our way, with Lily by my side.
I'm Amalia, and from my earliest memories, responsibility was my constant companion. Our modest home was always bustling with activity, my 2 younger brothers running around, and later, my baby sister who came into our lives when I was 10. Amalia, honey, could you help change Sarah's diaper? Mom would call out, her voice tired from working double shifts. I'd drop whatever I was doing and rush to help. That was our normal. Everyone pitched in, except Sarah. From the moment she arrived, she was different. She's just a baby, let her be, Dad would say, waving off any concerns about her behavior. I watched as my parents worked themselves to exhaustion, trying to provide for us all. Dad at the construction site, Mom cleaning houses, they did everything they could to keep food on our table and dreams alive in our hearts. My brothers, Mike and David, were the middle children, often lost in the shuffle between my responsibilities and Sarah's privileges. We shared knowing looks across the dinner table when Sarah would throw another tantrum and get her way. Again. I started working right after high school, determined to break free from the cycle of just getting by. The local diner wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. Every penny I earned went into my college fund jar, hidden away in my closet. I'd count it late at night, dreaming of the day I'd have enough to start classes at the community college. Within a year, my managers noticed my dedication. I went from waitressing to handling the books, and suddenly, my college dreams didn't seem so far-fetched anymore. I enrolled in evening classes, juggling work and studies with a determination that surprised even me. The exhaustion was real. Some nights I'd fall asleep over my textbooks, only to wake up at dawn for another shift. But watching Sarah sleep until noon, skip school whenever she felt like it, and face no consequences only fueled my drive to succeed. "You're going to burn yourself out," Dad warned one evening, finding me studying in the kitchen at midnight. I looked up from my accounting homework and smiled. "Maybe, but I'm going somewhere, Dad. I promise you that." My college degree opened doors I never thought possible. First National Bank hired me as a junior analyst, and I threw myself into the work with the same determination that got me through school. Within months, my supervisor pulled me aside. "Amalia, I've never seen someone pick things up so quickly," she said. "Keep this up, and you'll go far here." She wasn't wrong. I had a knack for numbers, and an even better one for dealing with people. While others complained about office politics, I navigated them effortlessly. Maybe all those years of managing family dynamics had taught me something useful after all. Meanwhile, my brothers Mike and David had moved out, starting their own lives. But Sarah? She was still at home, living the same consequence-free life she always had. Mom would call me with updates I didn't want to hear. "Sarah was out until 3 a.m. again," she'd say, sighing. "I worry, but you know how she is." I did know. I also knew about the parade of boyfriends, the failing grades, and the general lack of direction. But it wasn't my problem anymore. I had my own life now, my own apartment, my own goals. Then came the call that changed everything. "Sarah's pregnant," Mom announced one morning. "The father's gone to Arizona. Says he wants nothing to do with it." I gripped my phone tighter. And we'll help her raise the baby, of course. What else can we do? Of course they would. Sarah was still their precious baby, even at 18, even pregnant with her own child. I stayed silent, already knowing what was coming next. "You'll help too, won't you, Amalia? Come over on weekends? You're so good with children." That's when I started developing an impressive array of excuses. Urgent work projects. Professional development courses. Client meetings. Anything to avoid spending my precious free time taking care of yet another child. "I don't understand you anymore," Mom said during one particularly tense phone call. "You used to be so helpful." "I used to be a child forced to be helpful," I corrected her. "I'm an adult now, with my own life." "But family works both ways, Mom. Or have you forgotten the money I send every month?" That usually shut them up, at least temporarily. The checks I wrote were substantial, enough to cover Sarah's prenatal care, then baby supplies, then ongoing expenses. But it was never enough to buy their approval. My Aunt Lisa told me over coffee one day, "They're calling you heartless behind your back, you know. Saying you've changed, become cold." I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the cream create patterns in the dark liquid. Let them talk. They've never understood me anyway. "They say you're ungrateful," she pressed on. I looked her straight in the eye. "Ungrateful for what? The privilege of raising their other children? The opportunity to now raise their grandchild? I've earned everything I have, Aunt Lisa. Everything." The promotion to senior analyst came through that week. My salary increased again, and so did the checks I sent home. But I kept my boundaries firm. No weekends babysitting. No emergency childcare. No last-minute favors. Let them call me callous. I'd spent enough of my life being the responsible one. Between client meetings and financial reports, romance wasn't exactly a priority. My dating app sat mostly unused on my phone until that rainy Tuesday night when James's message popped up. Something about his profile seemed different. Maybe it was the genuine smile, or the lack of shirtless gym selfies. "I notice you work in finance," his message read. "I'm actually an investment advisor. Maybe we could bore each other with market talk over coffee?" That coffee turned into dinner, which turned into weekends, which turned into 2 years of the kind of relationship I'd never thought I'd have time for. James was patient, understanding about my work schedule, and somehow managed to make me laugh even after my most stressful days. You know, he said one evening as we walked through the park, I never thought I'd find someone who understands both compound interest and my terrible jokes. Then came the proposal, nothing flashy, just us in my apartment after a home-cooked meal. I can't imagine my life without you, he said, holding out the ring. Marry me? I said yes, before he could even finish asking. Introducing him to my family was surprisingly smooth. Even Sarah behaved herself, which was a minor miracle. My parents were overjoyed. Finally, their workaholic daughter was settling down. He's wonderful, Amalia, Mom gushed after our first family dinner together. And did you see how great he is with Tommy? She meant Sarah's son, my nephew, who had indeed taken an instant liking to James. The wedding was beautiful, and married life started out perfectly. James fit into the family like he'd always been there. He'd play with Tommy for hours when we visited, teaching him to throw a ball or build with blocks. Sarah watched these interactions with an odd intensity one didn't quite register at the time. He's going to be such an amazing father, she'd say, smiling at me meaningfully. You're so lucky, Amalia. That's when the questions started. First from my family, then from James himself. Don't you think it's time? He'd ask, watching Tommy run around our living room. We're not getting any younger. I'd explain my position again and again. I want us to be completely ready. We need our own house first, not this apartment. We need savings, security. But we're doing well, he'd counter. Both have good jobs. What are we waiting for? For the right time, I'd insist. One child, when we're ready. That's the plan we agreed on. He'd sigh and drop it, but I could feel his disappointment. During family gatherings, I'd catch him looking wistfully at Tommy. Your sister manages just fine, he'd say sometimes, not quite keeping the edge out of his voice. My sister lives with our parents and relies on their retirement savings, I'd reply. That's not what I want for our child. The tension grew slowly, almost imperceptibly. Like watching storm clouds gather on a sunny day, you know the rain is coming, but you tell yourself it's still far away. I was too focused on my next promotion, our house savings fund, the 5-year plan I'd carefully crafted. 5 years of marriage, and spring cleaning still meant going through James's mess. He never could keep his side of the closet organized. That Saturday morning started like any other, me sorting through old receipts, forgotten gym clothes, and the usual clutter that accumulated on his shelves. That's when I found it. A phone I'd never seen before, tucked behind his winter sweaters. My stomach tightened as I picked it up. Not his work phone. Not his personal phone. It wasn't even locked. My hands shook as I opened the messages. The first one I saw was from Sarah. My baby sister. Miss you already. Can't wait until Saturday, when she's at work again. Hundreds of messages. Pictures I wish I could unsee. Conversations about me. LOL, she's so clueless, always at the office. All she cares about is her precious career. The timestamps went back months. My legs gave out, and I sat there on the closet floor, reading message after message, each one worse than the last. Then I saw it, the message that made my world stop spinning. Baby's definitely yours. Doctor confirmed today. 12 weeks along. I don't remember driving to my parents' house. I don't remember much except the phone clutched in my white-knuckled grip. Sarah was there, of course. Saturday morning cartoons with Tommy. One big happy family. What the hell is this? I threw the phone on the coffee table. Tommy looked up, startled, and Mom quickly sent him to play in his room. Sarah didn't even flinch. She picked up the phone, scrolled through it casually like she was checking the weather. Oh, well, I guess you know now. That's all you have to say? you're sleeping with my husband? She shrugged, actually shrugged. We're in love, Amalia. These things happen. And now with the baby coming, James and I want to get married. Once Amalia stops being difficult about it. Difficult? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm being difficult? Well, yes, Sarah said, like she was explaining something simple to a child. You never wanted children anyway. You're too busy with your precious career. James needs a real family. I turned to my parents, waiting for them to say something, anything, to defend me. To condemn this betrayal. Instead, Mom sat down next to Sarah, patting her hand. Amalia, try to be reasonable. Tommy needs a father figure, and James is so good with him. And now with another baby coming. Reasonable? My voice cracked. My husband and sister are having an affair, and you want me to be reasonable? Dad cleared his throat. Well, you never wanted children, honey. And James, he's always wanted to be a father. Maybe this is for the best. When was the last time you even cooked him dinner? Sarah would make a proper wife. I looked at them, my family, all sitting there, defending the indefensible. Sarah, smug and pregnant with my husband's child. Mom, already planning the next wedding. Dad, avoiding my eyes, but clearly on their side. A proper wife, I repeated numbly. Like your precious Sarah, who mooches off you and cheats with her sister's husband. Sarah rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic, Amalia. Just go back to your big office and your important meetings. Leave the family stuff to people who actually care about it. I barely remember the drive home from my parents' house. The world seemed unreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart instead of my own. When I walked through our front door, James was there in the living room, acting like it was just another normal Saturday. Hey, honey, he moved to hug me, that familiar smile on his face. The smile I used to love. The smile that now made me sick to my stomach. I stepped back, holding up his second phone. Want to explain this? The change in his face was instant, first confusion, then recognition, then fear. Where did you? Found it while cleaning. You really should find better hiding spots for your affair phones. Amalia, I can explain. Explain what? The messages? The photos? Or maybe explain how you got my sister pregnant? He tried denial first, like they all do. It's not, I didn't, but he must have seen something in my face, because suddenly his whole demeanor changed. The mask dropped completely. Fine. Yes, Sarah and I are together, he snapped. What did you expect? You're never home. All you care about is work, work, work. When was the last time we even had a real conversation about starting a family? Oh, so this is my fault? You cheated because I wanted financial security before having children? You never wanted children. Not really. You always had some excuse, the house, the savings, the right time. Sarah actually wants a family. She understands what's important in life. I looked at this man, this stranger wearing my husband's face, and felt nothing but disgust. What's important in life is loyalty. Honor. Basic human decency. But I guess those things aren't important to you or my precious sister. Don't act all high and mighty, he snarled. You're just angry because Sarah's giving me what you wouldn't. The divorce papers were filed the next day. I had documentation of the affair, so it went through quickly. My brothers, Mike and David, came to help me move out of the apartment. They were the only ones who stood by me. We always knew Sarah was spoiled, Mike said as we packed boxes, but this is a new low. David couldn't even say her name. They're dead to me, he declared. Both of them. Through my brothers, I heard the updates I never wanted but couldn't help knowing. James and Sarah got married in a small ceremony. My parents were there, of course, beaming proudly. The baby was born, a girl. They moved into a small house in the suburbs. Tommy started calling James Dad. Mom keeps trying to get us to visit them, Mike told me during one of our monthly dinners. Says we need to be a family again. We are a family, David said, raising his glass. The three of us. That's enough. I nodded, grateful for my brother's loyalty in a world where loyalty seemed to mean nothing anymore. We were the only ones who understood that some betrayals can't be forgiven, some bridges can't be rebuilt, and some families are better off broken. 4 years can change everything. My new apartment overlooked the city skyline, floor-to-ceiling windows, marble countertops, and enough space to finally display the art collection I'd always wanted. The Mercedes in my reserved parking spot gleamed under the garage lights. I'd made it, exactly as I'd planned. My brothers visited often, bringing news and rumors. Sarah and James struggling to make ends meet. 3 moves in 2 years, each apartment smaller than the last. But I didn't care. Their life wasn't my concern anymore. Until that Tuesday evening when my phone lit up with a number I'd hoped never to see again. Amalia? James's voice. 4 years older, but still familiar enough to make my stomach clench. Please don't hang up. I should have. Instead, I listened. We need your help, he said, as if he had any right to ask me for anything. Sarah's had an accident. Broke her leg badly, compound fracture. She's had surgery, but she can't move around, can't take care of the kids. And, she's pregnant again. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, wondering if this was some kind of cosmic joke. The kids need someone to pick them up from school, watch them until I get home from work. Tommy's getting too big to handle everything himself, and with the new baby coming. He paused. We thought maybe you could help. You thought what? My voice came out eerily calm. They're your nephews, Amalia. Your family. Sarah can't even get to the bathroom by herself right now. My family? I repeated. The sister who slept with my husband and the husband who cheated on me, that's my family? Don't be like that, he snapped, his tone shifting from pleading to accusatory. This isn't about us. It's about innocent children who need help. Or are you too selfish to care about them too? Selfish? I almost laughed. That's rich, coming from you. We're struggling here. His voice rose. Do you know how expensive kids are? I'm working overtime just to keep food on the table. We can't even afford a decent apartment anymore. Meanwhile, you're living it up in your luxury condo with your fancy car. So that's what this is about? Money? Not all of us can focus only on our careers, he said bitterly. Some of us have real responsibilities. Must be nice, having all that money and no one to spend it on but yourself. Must be nice having the family you stole and no way to support them, I replied coldly. Sounds like a real dream come true. The kids need parents who didn't build their relationship on betrayal. Goodbye, James. I hung up mid-protest and blocked his number before he could call back. My mother's number showing up on my phone was almost as unwelcome as James's had been. I answered anyway, some old habit I couldn't quite break. Amalia? Mom's voice had that tone, the one she always used when she wanted something. We need to talk about Sarah. She needs help. James called you, didn't he? About her leg? I paced my living room, fighting the urge to hang up immediately. Yes, he did. And I'll tell you what I told him, not my problem. How can you be so cold? She's your sister. She's struggling with 3 children, well, soon to be 3. The sister who slept with my husband? That sister? Mom sighed heavily. That was years ago, Amalia. You need to move past it. We're family. Funny how family only matters when you need something from me. We've helped her as much as we can. Mom's voice cracked a little. But she keeps asking for money, for the kids, for the rent, for everything. We've gone through all our savings. Your father and we can't keep this up. I couldn't help but laugh. So the golden child is finally becoming too expensive to maintain? Don't be cruel. She's never learned to. Mom trailed off. To what? Work? Support herself? Take responsibility for her actions? Gee, I wonder why that is. She just keeps having babies, Mom said, frustration finally breaking through. She won't look for a job, says she's too busy with the children. But she's always asking for money, always needing something. Sounds like exactly the person you raised her to be, I said coldly. The princess who never had to face consequences. You have no right to speak to me like that. Mom's voice rose. I am your mother. And whose fault is it that Sarah turned out this way? Who taught her that she never had to work for anything? That someone would always bail her out? We did our best. No, you did your easiest. And now you're calling me because the monster you created is too expensive to feed. You have a duty to help your family. Mom was almost shouting now. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? I cut in. You mean like supporting my sister when she had an affair with my husband? Or like calling me selfish for wanting financial security before having children? I don't owe you anything. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking with 4 years of pent-up rage. The expensive view from my apartment windows suddenly seemed like the best revenge. My life, built exactly as I'd planned it, without their help or their approval. Mike called me one evening while I was reviewing quarterly reports. You'll never guess who tried calling me today. Sarah, I already knew. The desperation tour was making its rounds. Bingo. Wanted me to help with the kids, maybe loan them some money until they get back on their feet. He snorted. As if they were ever on their feet to begin with. What did you tell her? Same thing David told her yesterday, that some betrayals can't be undone. That what she did to you wasn't just cheating, it was destroying a family. She started crying, saying we were being cruel, that family should help family. He paused. I reminded her she didn't seem too concerned about family when she was sleeping with your husband. I leaned back in my office chair, looking out at the city lights. How did she take that? About as well as you'd expect. Started screaming about how we're all against her, how nobody understands how hard her life is. He chuckled darkly. Guess karma finally caught up with her. 2 weeks later, David brought the news I'd been expecting. They moved in with Mom and Dad. All of them, Sarah, James, the kids, and the baby on the way. Dad's converting his workshop into another bedroom. How are Mom and Dad handling it? Remember how peaceful retirement was supposed to be? Well, now they're full-time babysitters and ATMs. Mom's watching the kids while Sarah recovers, which apparently means scrolling through her phone all day. Dad's dipping into his pension to cover their expenses. I shook my head. They made their choice. Mom came by my place yesterday, David continued. Wanted to know if I'd talk to you about helping out. Said they're overwhelmed. I bet they are. The next day, Mom showed up at my door unannounced. I almost didn't recognize her. She looked older, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. Please, she started, before I could even speak. Just listen. No, I cut her off. You listen. You chose all of it. You chose to spoil Sarah rotten. You chose to support her when she betrayed me. You chose to let them move in. These are your choices, Mom. Live with them. And if you show up at my door again, I'm calling the police. Are we clear? She started to speak, but I cut her off again. The next time you feel overwhelmed, remember this was your choice. You chose the daughter who betrayed her sister over the one who only ever worked hard and did the right thing. Now live with it. I closed the door on her protests and blocked her number, the last family number I had left to block, besides my brother's. That night, I had dinner with Marcus, the man I'd been seeing for the past few months. He knew my story, knew about the betrayal and the aftermath. He'd never pushed, never rushed, just listened and understood. After I told him about the latest family events, he reached across the table and took my hand. Family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who you choose. I squeezed his hand back, thinking about my brothers who stood by me, about Marcus who understood me, about the life I'd built on my own terms. In the end, Sarah hadn't stolen my family, she'd just helped me see which parts of it were worth keeping. My brothers are coming over this weekend, I told him. Would you like to join us? His smile was answer enough. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace with where I was and who I had chosen to be. The drama playing out at my parents' house wasn't my problem anymore. I had my own life to live, my own family to build, and my own happiness to protect.